Instead, the task force is meant to root out the hidden pockets of federal government that has for too long remained in the shadows of our reach, out of our reach for even good faith investigators to reach.
And more than 62 years after the assassination of John F. Kennedy, we have now seen thousands of files released on the president's death. But tonight, some of those files are still unreleased. That and more were at the center of the congressional hearing just days ago, casting doubt on the federal government's findings back in the 60s. Living witnesses to that dark day in American history testifying that Lee Harvey Oswald could not have acted alone, and that it's unlikely a single bullet caused President Kennedy's death.
Based on what you witnessed, do you believe the CIA engaged in a concerted effort to cover up certain facts related to the assassination of President Kennedy?
Yes.
Are the wounds you observed consistent with the government's conclusion Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone?
No.
The testimony included allegations of tainted medical files, fake x-rays, lost bullet fragments, even parts of the president's brain gone missing. This hearing, the second on the JFK assassination from the House Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. And one witness, the first Black member of the Secret Service, who was assigned to protect President Kennedy, testifying for the first time at the age of 90 years old. For years, Abraham Bolden says presidential security was lax and has called for declassifying government documents related to JFK's assassination. There is so much to talk about, and joining us tonight is NewsNation correspondent-at-large, Geraldo Rivera, and of course,
hi, Natasha.
He has spent decades investigating this Zapruder film and evidence connected with this. Geraldo, we're so lucky to have your insight into this tonight. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
Well, you're so kind. Thank you.
Let's start with Abraham Bolden here. I mean, this was an incredible testimony. The former Secret Service member said there was a plot to kill Kennedy at the Army Air Force football game in Chicago 3 weeks before the assassination. What do you make of that stunning claim?
Well, I'd like to see the evidence writ large. I just believe that so long after the events, they have them sealed and unsealed and have various investigative bodies and legislative bodies pour over them. I've lived through so many phases of this coming back. Now it's the football game. Now whatever else it is. There's always a tidbit. There's always something. There's always a witness, 90-year-old, and then they were 80, and then there was 70, and there was 60. And still, after all this time, I still come back to the same conclusion. If it had been something other than the Warren Commission finding, that Lee Harvey Oswald and Lee Harvey Oswald alone killed John Kennedy, we would know it by now. So I am unconvinced by all this recent testimony, and it always seems to me that the Congress people involved are always the most eager to get on TV, and they make news by outrageous or outlandish or unprovable claims. I think that if there were some other reality, by now we would know about it. I believe that Lee Harvey Oswald was a low-down, dirty communist. He went to live in Moscow. He came back. The one thing ex-Marine, the only thing in his life he ever did well was the assassination. He was a marksman. He was a sharpshooter. I believe that he tragically took the life of the 35th president of the United States, this young and gracious man who was, making an imprint on society writ large and on the world. Just think if Natasha had lived, maybe we would have averted the war in Vietnam. Maybe, there would have been a kind of an upswell, a new rebirth of the country with this young man leading the way. Instead, we're talking about sleazebag assassins, and Jack Ruby killing Lee Harvey Oswald, of course, didn't help matters, eliminating the shooter, and then Jack Ruby himself dying. You couldn't write a mystery that sets up the tragedy better, but you get through all the weeds, and I still come out in the same place. The guy on the left killed the guy on the right, and that's just the way I see it.
Well, so Geraldo, let's stick with Bolden for just a moment, because he said when he raised questions about presidential security, he faced trumped-up charges that landed him in jail. He was eventually pardoned by President Biden, but he has spoken at length now about the sheer racism he faced within the agency. He says he watched agents drinking on the job while protecting the president. And he says even, the charges came when he intended to speak about the Warren Commission, about the misconduct. That's when the charges came down for him. So in your mind, I mean, could it be that there was a plot within the government to kill JFK, and we are only learning about it now? Or is it just simply you don't see it?
I don't see it.
Yeah.
I see a man who paved history as the first black Secret Service agent, now finally giving testimony, being able to vent, being able to present to the world what he's kept up inside him for decades. Someone who has taken him at his word, considering the era in which he joined the Secret Service, that he was the victim of racism on the job and discrimination on the job, resentments, scores to settle. I see a million more mundane explanations. I know, because of the historic connection between me and the Zapruder film and the fact that I was the first to run it, that I will forever be asked about the assassination. And I accept the task. But I have to tell you that if my opinion has any more weight than anybody else's who, who's not a forensic pathologist, it just seems to me that I am convinced that this was the tragedy of the second half of the 20th century. This was so bitter. I remember when it happened. At my age, 82 now, I was a college kid, a junior in the University of Arizona in the student union, and I walked in, and I hadn't been in the student union for very often, maybe once or twice before. But there was a television, again a rarity, playing there in the student union, and there it was unfolding before my very eyes. It traumatized me then as a young man, and I carried it with me. And then when I had the chance to run that Zapruder film, we defied many people and ran it despite the threat of lawsuits and everything else, so it could be presented. And I don't think, ironically, it shows the crime very vividly, but it defies explanations because the way the head moved, and the second bullet, and the magic bullet, and the bullet on the seat, and
so Geraldo,
what did Jackie do?
Is there still a question outstanding for you, or is this case closed in your mind?
Well, that's a good question. I think that I would like to know. As I said before, I think it's Oswald and Oswald alone. But I would like to know. I got fired from ABC for complaining in 1985 about a story that Celia Chase, my colleague at the time, did about the relationship, a purported relationship, alleged relationship between Marilyn Monroe, the sex symbol of her time, and both Kennedys, Robert Kennedy, the president's attorney general, and the president himself. So they had the three of them were involved personally, according to the story that Celia Chase did at the time. Marilyn Monroe was also purportedly involved with some Chicago gangsters. Now, so you have a woman, again, this is just the stories that were told at the time, all denied, all rebutted. But here you have Marilyn Monroe, John Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and mobsters. Did the mobsters, out of jealousy, have a motive to commit this murder? Was it mob related? Or was it the Cubans? Remember, Castro had a beef over the Bay of Pigs and so forth. So was it Cuban related? So there's the Chicago mob nexus,
the communist connection, the Cuban connection,
and then there's
and more than
the
6 decades later,
on Moscow and Oswald.
Geraldo, and we're still talking about it. We're still talking about it today.
Still talking about it.
Geraldo
and
Rivera.
6 decades from now,
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
You and me right here. It's a date. Geraldo Rivera, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
You'll be alone then. Okay.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.